Like to press anything? You're on. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I'm going to talk a bit about ignorance, which has been a leitmotif throughout my career in the ideas business. I'll give you some background thoughts. I came to this country from South Africa in 1961. I've been in the ideas business since 1969. I started off in advertising. I became a brand development consultant. I was really lucky enough to meet a man in the drinks business soon after I started. And
Hi, Rob.
the rest was pretty straightforward. Anyway, I'll just show you. Why is that not working? Sorry, the technical people are letting me down too. Here are listed some of the companies that I worked for throughout my career. They're all big blue chip corporates, interesting nevertheless. But there were two companies I think that had a real influence on the work that I did. The first one, surprisingly, was Procter & Gamble, highly structured, very organized, very boring in many ways, but I think they kept me honest because one of the things about P&G was that they removed any of the romance from business as far as I was concerned. We were in the business of selling products, and their products were basically soap of one kind or another. And I think that was important because I've always thought like a P&G man throughout my career, although I've been in more romantic categories. But the other one that was perhaps even more exciting was Kerrygold. When I worked in an advertising agency, we were invited by the Irish Dairy Board to transform their products from a commodity commanding no price at all to a brand selling at a premium price. It was an amazing event because it wasn't just about selling products, it was about a national cause. It was contributing to the economy, and I'm happy to say it was an incredibly successful operation. But Kerrygold was another side to developing brands. Now I'm going to tell you a story, because I was lucky enough to peak very early. We got what I call the brief from hell. My partner and I, we were only a two-man business, set up independently in 1973. And about a week into our business, we got a brief from an Irish company. And what happened was that the Irish finance minister introduced a law which said that any companies that develop brands primarily for export would get a 10-year tax holiday. Imagine that. But this brief came from the Irish finance minister through the Irish company to the UK company, landed on my desk. We never met the client. We had no idea what they liked or disliked. And we just had to get on with it. And it started, I remember saying to my partner one morning, when we'd been in business about a week, what are we going to do about this Irish brief? And is there anything in my experience of Kerrygold which might have some bearing on it? So he rather idly said, well, what happens if you mix Irish whiskey and Irish cream? Well, there's no Irish cream available, but we went down to the local supermarket and bought some Irish whiskey. Oh, sorry, I left this. We'll leave this. We bought some Irish whiskey. We bought some Irish cream, put them together, tasted them in the office on Monday morning about 10 o'clock. It tasted utterly disgusting. So we went back to the supermarkets and looked around the shelves and found Cadbury drinking chocolate, added that with some sugar to the mix. This whole procedure took about 3/4 of an hour. But we ended up with a product that tasted quite nice. So somebody had put a gun at my head and said, what exactly were the proportions of the ingredients you put in? I had absolutely no idea whatsoever. But we developed this. I jumped into a cab went to see my client with a Schweppes spoon-top bottle with this brown stuff inside it. And to my surprise, and I think this is one of my first lessons in brand development, is that the real heroes of ideas are not the people who have them, but the people who buy them. You know, if somebody had said to me, well, that's rubbish, go away and do something else, I would have been that. But people who buy ideas have to put their reputations on the line. If they're entrepreneurs, they sometimes have to put their life savings on the line as well. But the guy bought the idea, and it was very exciting. We then got down to branding. And branding came serendipitously. I think when you're in the business, this kind of business, as I was, you think about ideas 24/7. I mean, it's a 168-hour-a-week job. You wake up with thinking about ideas, you go to sleep worrying about ideas. And we went along to look at our new offices, which were in Bridge Street. And if you look on the left, there are 3 windows and a white wall. And below, a restaurant with no fixed ethnicity called Bailey's. And I was thinking about this cream product of ours, and I thought, well, Bailey's is a superb name. Now, I can't justify it. I can't give you any rational reason. I chose it because it wasn't typically Irish, and somebody had once said to me that typical Irish names like his, which is O'Reilly, were a bit whimsical for brands. Therefore, look for something that isn't totally Irish. And Bailey's was it. So I called up my client and said, how about Bailey's? He said, fantastic, let's do it. The next thing to do was to develop a package, which he was there. Guy came in with about 8 designs, and we looked at them, and everybody said, that's the one. And that actually became the original Bailey's label. It also became a kind of design generic for all cream liqueurs. If you look at the hundreds of copycats that appear to Bailey's, they all have a kind of Irish pass with C, like cartouche. So that was Bailey's. I'll give you the results about 45 minutes in Dean Street all those years ago. In 2020, Bailey's sold 7.8 million cases. Its turnover was $1.9 billion. It sold in 182 countries. And I get about the same amount of money per bottle as you did, which is not a lot. But it was a very rewarding and satisfying experience. Let me see where we were. Okay.
We're probably going to have to skip a few as we're running short on time.
Probably not. These are just some of the brands that I developed during my time at working for IDV, Piat here. And I think one of the issues that I get, a lot of people come to me with brands these days, and they say, we're going to develop this new gin. I want to put it in the market. And I think it really is tough out there, because most of the ideas for the new gins that I get are pretty well the same as other people's, or they are just ideas which will last one Christmas and then disappear. So I think you have to be aware of that. And I think, again, P&G taught me that. Another thing, I think looking back over 50 odd years in this business, I think when you create brands, you have to have yourself in mind. You have to satisfy yourself with what you've done. It's a good idea. Now, I've never sort of worked in categories like ladies' underwear, so I haven't needed to project my personal feelings. Mostly, I've worked in categories where I've had some feeling for the subject. So I've always worked and asked myself the question, would I buy that? And I think it's very important that you feel that you would, and that you can commit yourself to them. Another thing which I think is very important is brands are built on words. And I've always found that if you found the word, you could find the brand. I mean, I developed 2 vodka brands, and vodka is really tough, because what you have to do is differentiate something that's colorless, odorless, and flavorless. And I developed 2. I developed a smooth vodka, the world's first the world's smoothest vodka, which was called Smirnoff Black. I think it still is. And I developed the world's first grape vodka, which was unique in its category. And those are two words that drove the brand. And I was thinking of words and my youngest ever client. This is young George Strasfall, age 14, who got in touch with me about 6 months ago, and said that he set up a business selling eggs. He'd gone to all the local farmers, found the best one, and had built up a business in Hayward Heath selling eggs to other people. And he said he made £2,000 in his first year, so age 14. That was pretty good going. But to my absolute surprise, he read my book. His father hadn't, but he had. And he said, I like your book. He said, I want to build something of my egg business so that I can sell it on once girls take over from eggs. And so we looked around, we did some research, we looked at his eggs, we looked at them against supermarket eggs. And one of the things we found out about them was that they were yellow. They were much yellower. If you bought eggs from Tesco and cracked them open, they were pale and anemic and unexciting looking. His were yellow. So I gave him a brand name, which was, and yellow was his word. His eggs were going to be yellower than anybody else's. And I dug into my 1960s songbook and found an old song by Donovan called Mellow Yellow. George's eggs are now called Mellow Yellow. And the yellowest, tastiest eggs this side of anywhere. And soon George is going to discover girls and move on, and maybe we're going to sell Mellow Yellow to some other guys at his school. But I think finding a word to find a brand is very important. Another thing which I think is people don't think of as often as they should, and that is sell off the pack if you can, and then try to be all things to all people. And here are a couple of brands that I hugely admire. The first one is Lift. I discovered this when doing a talk in Australia. I'm going around the supermarket and seeing this thing with this hard-hitting lemon made with bite. Now, for somebody with a jaded palate like mine, that was music to my ears. So I bought this, and it was a fabulous product. And I think they're trying to recognize the fact that not everybody is going to like that kind of lemon drink, but they were focused and they were selling off the pack they made so. Now, here's a whiskey that I saw. And I bought 2 bottles as soon as I saw it advertised. It's called Smokehead, and it's got all words like smoky, peaty, rich, all those words that separate out 90% of whiskey drinkers, but for the other 10%, it's a very attractive message. Okay, on with it. The other thing interesting is great design. I think when people produce products, they sometimes try to design their own. And I've always felt that great design can change something boring into something really important. So if you're going to spend any of your money, spend it on a good designer. And here's an example. Sorry, I got a technical hitch.
We're going to have to finish in a second.
That rushed me. It's a long way. Sorry. Another thing, try to do things with your brand that get people talking about it, particularly with small companies. You need to do something that makes your brand interesting, gets people chatting about it, because it's, as I said, it's really tough out here. Oh, sorry, can you get that slide there? Okay. Some guys from Trinity College came to me with about the world's 90th alto pop and said, what are we going to do about it? There's nothing much I could do. They'd done the brand. I said, why don't you produce a heavy metal flavor for this drink? So they said, well, what's heavy metal taste like? I said, I have no idea, but you make it up. Make it chili and marmalade, if you like. So get people, do something that people talk about. Make every tiny detail count. If I can show you that. I love this with Schweppes. It's got makers of creators of bubbles since 1783. Kingfisher, most thrilling chills, not served cold, but most thrilling chills. I appropriated a couple of these. Here's a rum that I developed which says made only in Australia. Now there's a competitive point because Bacardi is made in loads of places. This was made only in Australia. So I used it again with another brand, which is made only in Ireland. So that suggested that perhaps Bailey's was made in lots of places. These tiny details like that, when you develop a brand, every single word, every single phrase is important. I won't do that. I'll end with one point, which is you're going to fail, but when you fail, fail quickly and fail cheaply. I think that's a very important lesson. Don't spend too much money doing consumer research. And I'll end up with one line, which is my book. I've written a book, which is called That Shit Will Never Sell. And it's here. And I have some copies if anybody wants to buy them. The title came from a remark somebody said about Bailey's back in 1975 when the CEO of the company took it to him. He looked at it, tasted it, and said, "Man, that shit will never sell." And luckily it did. So thank you very much indeed.
Wonderfully entertaining. And what's celebrating?
I mean, I couldn't do longer.
No, but what's good about this in the context of today is what we're looking at is ideas, is starting from an idea and how you develop from there. And you're bringing the brand in with the idea and developing them together, developing with yourself and the customer in mind. And I think that's just wonderful. And by the way, I read this book over the weekend. It really is entertaining. It's well worth reading, this book. And you'll be outside, will you?
I will never miss the
On the
chance.
table, never miss it. Thank you very much.
Sorry, no questions.
No time for questions.
You can catch David outside, so there you go. Buy his book. Buy the book. It was 10%, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't want to spend a little time in the other bloke that's done
David, yes, you can take some questions while we're just setting up the next.
Okay, quick question, David. Anybody?
How
Right.
much is the book?
How much the book?
It's £20.
Quick question. You talk about products more than services during your presentation. So I'm wondering if everything that you said can be 100% relatable to services instead of products.
I've worked in services as well. I love solving problems. It doesn't really matter whether it's a product or a service. So I love working in anything. Hi there, I'm very French and worked on quick shit feeding stuff. There are loads. I could give you chapter and verse on ideas you should work.
The dog food. Tell us the story about the dog food.
Oh, the dog food. The whole thing with dog food. Anthropomorphic, in other words, people who serve don't have to like it for themselves. And we developed a thing called Hungry Ham, where you added boiling water to the dog food. The trouble was that the aroma was so utterly irresistible that the dogs ripped kitchens apart to get it. But there's been a lot of brands and businesses, sometimes my fault, sometimes other people. I can tell you all about it.
Any more questions? Anyway, yes.
How do you know when you're onto the winner, when you're mastering the ship? How do you do
Thank you, yes. I don't know, I mean, in a sense, my job was to develop a brand and hand it to the company. Sometimes, I mean, maybe companies made a huge success of it. Another company, different people, we could have messed it up. I think there's a lot of it is to do with, I think with ideas, ownership is incredibly important. If you hand an idea over to somebody and they start to do it, their idea and not yours, then at the beginning, ownership is very important.
Yep, got one more over here.
Hello, Dr. David. My name is Paula, and I'm actually into one of the talks into ARU. Last year, I think, all the students. Basically, one of the things that you said at the ARU was, you said one can sell anything if they believe in it. Like, and as a business student, what we learn is to check the market shares and all that before if our ideas sell, to check basically that makes sense.
Well, out of my comfort zone, essentially, I would hand the idea over to people. That was briefly, I would give them an idea, and then what happened after that is entirely academic. So, the question of belief will differ from person to person.
Right, thank you very much, David. Thank you.